Chandrika, please start the session.
Warm greetings, everyone. Thank you all for joining. I, Chandrika Singh, a volunteer at LawFoyer, would like to welcome you all who have gathered here to add radiance to this webinar on right to information and good governance in India, contemporary issues and challenges. Now, I'd like to call upon my esteemed colleague, Ms. Kefi Khan, to brief us about the organization LawFoyer. Over to you, Kefi.
Thank you, Chandrika. A very good afternoon to one and all present here. First of all, I would like to thank each one of you for giving us your precious time by joining our webinar. Now, I will be telling you all in brief about LawFoyer. LawFoyer is working in an association with law firm Regan Associates. LawFoyer consists of a team of law aspirants determined to find ways to make law simple to understand and easily accessible to all. We are a growing legal website focused on improving our collection of content and enhancing the forum experience. The LawFoyer aims to become a platform for the sharing of ideas, opinions, views, updates, and content on the legal system. The platform primarily focuses on the Indian legal system. It is an attempt to connect the youth out there who aspire to gain knowledge and who like to frame an opinion. Beside this, those who are not aware about us, I would like to highlight what LawFoyer is currently working on. First, we pledge to provide our readers with unfiltered news and articles to understand and comprehend various concepts of law. I repeat myself again that we provide unfiltered news. As nowadays we witness that getting unfiltered news is fake news and hyperbolic statements on various significant issues such as the Northwest Delhi riots and the Russia Ukraine war, etc. But they need to be transmitted to us in a true sense. And recently, a strongly worded advisory from Ministry of Information and Broadcasting has also asked news channels to stop using unparliamentary language and making false claims in their news coverage. So we, in the LawFoyer, follow each and every guidelines of the ministry and provide authentic news to its readers. Second, we are aiming for CLAT aspirants for the year 2023 as we are already a media partner of various institutions and we are already in a process of affiliating as a media partner with some more institutes offering legal courses. For this purpose, our PR team is reaching out to various schools of Lucknow and Kanpur areas. They are approaching students by organizing various events and competitions. Also, we will provide them online course material as well as doubt solving sessions. And third, LawFoyer is in a process of creating online platform to offer certification courses to everyone. We have collaborated with faculties of various law colleges across the country who are helping us in designing various course modules. As we all know, research is the backbone of legal industry. So our aim is to provide certification courses in such a way that it enhances the research skills along with practical ability of young aspiring lawyers. Thank you, that's my part. Now I would like to hand over the mic to Chandrika.
Thank you, Kefi. It gives me immense pleasure to introduce and welcome our honorable guest speaker, the very learned Dr. Rajeev Kumar Singh, Assistant Professor at Amity Law School, Amity University, Uttar Pradesh. Dr. Singh is a BSc, LLB, LLM, and PhD in Right to Information and Analytical Study with reference to good governance. For this particular webinar, there could not have been a more appropriate person than Sir to embellish, to enhance, and to enlighten us all with his knowledge and wisdom. For Sir is a renowned author of the book Right to Information, Empowerment, and Good Governance, and has co authored several books such as Social Exclusion and Exclusion, A Journey from Past to Present, Human Rights Protection and Good Governance, a reminiscence of global Indian thinker, among others. Sir has as many as 27 publications to his credit, where he has published research papers and articles on subjects like right to information with special reference to good governance, surrogacy law in India, need for criminalization of marital rape, labor welfare legislations, public interest litigation, the NJAC, legal framework for acid attack in India, welfare state, nexus between criminals, politicians, and police in relation to the rule of law in various reputed national and international research journals. Dr. Singh has an enriching teaching experience of about 8 years, where he has worked as a research guide and an assistant professor of law in Department of Human Rights, School of Legal Studies at Baba Saheb Bhimrao Ambedkar University, which happens to be a central university in Lucknow. To add a feather to his illustrious cap, Sir has also delivered numerous talks on All India Radio, Prasar Bharati, on topics like human rights law, education, and employment, a debate on tolerance and intolerance, Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas, Ujjwala scheme in India, Rashtriya Suraksha or Manvadikar, Mission Indradhanush, to name a few. Not only this, Sir has been at the helm of organizing several seminars, conferences, symposiums, and workshops that are conducted. He is an information awareness program run by Prasad Bharati at Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, Doordarshan Kendra, Lucknow. Dr. Singh has acted in several other capacities, such as acting as a resource person, chair, and judge in national and international seminars, conferences, and moot courts. Having had the privilege of being taught by Sir, I can totally vouch for the fact that he never puts his erudition on display, but one cannot miss it. Credits to his humility, captivating demeanor, and charismatic persona. Educators like Sir are not only a powerhouse of information and inspiration, but are an asset to the legal fraternity at large. I'm absolutely delighted to now call upon the Honorable guest speaker, Dr. Rajeev Kumar Singh. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Chandrika, for your all good words for me. Thank you, Regal Associates and LawFoyer, and all the office bearers, team members who has doing an excellent work. And I am always uh, front runner to promote any such platform which is going to up a hill and promote the education to those who are underprivileged. And now in this pandemic and thereafter, we have been in new normal where once data is only required and awareness is required, and you have to require one smartphone so that you can get all the informations, good lectures, knowledge, books on your one click. So once again, my hearty congratulations to the Regal Associate, LawFoyer, and all the organization. As the topic that has been assigned to me is very close to my heart, because this constitutional law and relating part of governance is a very important topic, and not only for the academic syllabi, it is equally important to understand by a layman instead of a lawman. Lawman is undoubtedly has to understand it, but today's topic is very much important to all the citizens, actually, all the citizens who are living in India. So, how this right to information is important for them, and how this good governance can be ensured and how what is the correlation between right to information and good governance. So my whole lecture will be uh, that I would not like to say it's a lecture, it will be a deliberation, and undoubtedly, because I don't know what sort of audience we have, but my attempt will be to point out certain rural areas success story, so that we can actually fulfill the objective and aim of this platform. As far as this right to information and good governance is concerned, it is not something new for India. Actually, whenever we talk about the right to information, we thought that whatever the Western philosophies are there, how the Western countries incorporated in their system, how they provide the right to information, and how the good governance can be ensured. So, for the good governance, we used to see the World Bank, the UNDP, but more prior to the World Bank and UNDP, Chanakya has already in his Arthasastra has mentioned. So these all things will be included in my deliberation. Firstly, I would start my journey of this deliberation with the actually I start with the national perspective and what was the approach of the court towards the right to information in India. Basically, when we come up with a constitution in 1950, when we declared ourselves republic on 26 January 1950, we come up with a written constitution, world's largest constitution. And not only we come up with a constitution, we also come up with certain promises, certain aims and objectives in our preamble, that what sort of India we want to make. Actually, when we read our preamble, we find that we want to make India a sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic, and republic. So, in theoretical way, when we come up with a written constitution, we declared ourselves a democracy. We opted essentials of democracy. We declare ourselves republic. But this task was remain uncompleted until now. The process is going on, and in the same process, one right becomes very important, which is given in part third, that is the freedom of speech and expression. This freedom of speech and expression that is given in constitution in article 19 is a very important article, because once we talk that we have declared ourselves a democracy, we have opted a democratic setup. So no democracy run without the freedom of speech and expressions to their citizens. So in this article 19, actually, three rights from the time to time have been evolved, developed, and interpreted by the Supreme Court. One right was freedom of speech and expression that comes out. It is a expressive part, and that right which is embedded in that is a right to information, right to know. And another right is right to be forgotten. And the third right that comes out from Article 19 is a media right. So today, my deliberation will be focused on the first right that comes out as a byproduct of Article 19 is right to information. Actually, the Supreme Court of India had recognized the right to information as a constitutionally protected fundamental right. When we refer the state of Uttar Pradesh versus Rajnarayan and others, in this case, Justice K.K. Mathew has observed very prominently that in a government of responsibility like ours, where all the agents are public, must be responsible for their conduct, there can be but a few secrets. The people of this country have a right to know every public act, everything that is done in a public way by their public functionaries. They are entitled to know the particulars of every public transaction in all its bearings. Actually, this state of UP versus Rajnarayan case is very popular case in which Justice Mathew deciding this case, although he did not say that right to information, he used the term right to know. And further, in SP Gupta versus Union of India, Justice P.N. Bhagwati observed that the concept of an open government is the direct emanation from the right to know, which seems to be implicit in the right of free speech and expression guaranteed under Article 19(1)(a), and therefore disclosure of information in regard to the functioning of the government must be the rule, and the secrecy an exception, justified only where the strictest requirements of public interest so demand. So the approach of the court must be to attenuate the area of secrecy as much as possible, consistently with the requirement of public interest and public demand. The approach of the court must be attenuate the area of secrecy, and bearing in mind all the time that disclosure also serves an important aspect of public interest. And despite all this, however, there was little effort by the government to institutionalize and set up a legal framework to exercise the right to information. Actually, it was the in 1990s when various people's movements, most prominent among them being the Mazdoor Kisan Shakti Sangathan, put concerted and sustained pressure to build up such an institution. And it is a marvel that such a law could be passed despite resistance from a large number of vested interests. And this happens due to a number of factors, such as mass mobilization of rural populations, building of alliance amongst different movements to join hands to recognize the right to information as a priority for all, an intense lobby by activists with political leaders, and then came a change in government. The United Progressive Alliance (UPA) came in power in year 2004, and they come up with a common minimum program stated to make Right to Information Act more progressive, participatory, and meaningful. The UPA government set up a National Advisory Council, that is NAC, to monitor the implementation of the common minimum program that has been framed to run the UPA government. And the council was chaired by Sonia Gandhi and had leaders of various people's movements, including the Right to Information movement, as members. And finally, that day came when the Right to Information Bill was passed by Parliament in May 2005 and got the presidential assent in June 15th, 2005. Prior to this Right to Information Act 2005, there was a Right to Information Act 2002, but that act couldn't see the light of the day. And the reason was very simple, because a number of loopholes were in that Right to Information Act 2002, and that is why, although being passed from Parliament, getting assent from the President, it could not be enforced. And the Right to Information law, granting citizens legal right to access information, made the government increase transparency in its functioning, and the law is internationally recognized as being among the most powerful transparency law in the world. Here, friends, I would like to ponder upon some global perspective in this regard too. Actually, this freedom of information always everywhere used as a tool to make government accountable. And Sweden has the oldest legislation relating to public access to official documents. The Swedish Freedom of Information of Press Act, adopted in 1766, set the principle that government records were by default to be made accessible to the public and granted citizens the right to demand documents from government bodies, which were prepared and received by them. And for this, Swedish citizens did not have to provide a reason. Here it is very important to understand this: the Sweden was the first country who come up with the Freedom of Press Act in 1766, and every citizen of Swedish people has the right to get the information without mentioning the reason, that for what reason they are demanding the information. And the same phenomena has been incorporated in our Right to Information Act 2005 too. Citizens have not to give any reason that for what reason they desire the information. The only requirement to get the information is to be the citizen. Documents that were to be exempted from disclosure were defined in the Secrecy Act, and even under this act, this Freedom of Press Act in 1766. Now compared to our Right to Information Act. In our Right to Information Act 2, the secrecy section is there where the informations are exempted from the purview of Right to Information Act. Here it becomes very important to understand this right emerges from a fundamental right, that is the Article 19, freedom of speech and expression. And that freedom of speech and expression has come up from the Government of India Act 1935. And from Government of India Act 1935, this right was not the absolute right. Even all the fundamental rights are not the absolute right. In India, we have placed certain restrictions on each and every fundamental right. Same is applied in the case of Article 19 also. So Article 19 in the the Constitution of India 1950, it itself contains restrictions on the freedom of speech and expression. So the byproduct of that right cannot be also an absolute right. So in Art Section 8 and 9, by virtue of this 19 class 2 and schedule 2 is also in right to information act, where certain organizations has been exempted, put out from the ambit of the right to information. So they were secrets only for a specified period of time. However, for over a century, Sweden remained the only nation that took to transforming this principle into legal right. It was not until the creation of the United Nations that the concept of right to information began to spread and countries began to enact comprehensive laws for public access to government held documents and information. When we refer Article 19 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights in 1948 called for all persons to have right to seek and receive information. Soon after, many Nordic countries began to look at the Swedish model. For example, Finland enacted the law on the public character of official documents in 1951. Norway and Denmark passed their information access laws in 1970. And in the next 30 years, they were followed by the United States Freedom of Information Act 1966, France and the Netherlands in 1978, Australia and New Zealand in 1982, and Canada in 1983. The UK's Freedom of Information Act 2000 was fully implemented in January 2005. Now, friends, here it becomes very important to understand that though that UK, which was the country who ruled almost all the countries, and India was also not the exception, they come up with the most draconian law to put the informations in the grab of secrecy, that was the Official Secret Act 1923. They have come up with the same legislation in their country in 1911, 1922, and then 1923. But when they come up with the Freedom of Information Act, that which was implemented in January 2005, they repealed the Official Secret Act in their country. But here in ours, it is very surprising that we are still running with the Official Secret Act 1923. The only thing that has been done in Right to Information Act by virtue of Section 24 of the Right to Information Act and by Section 22 of the Right to Information Act, we have exempted certain organizations, and in 22 we have given the overriding effect to the right to information. This Right to Information Act will override on the Official Secret Act 1923. So over a time, freedom of information law has increasingly became the norm, and over more than 100 plus countries around the world have now adopted the Comprehensive Freedom of Information Act to facilitate access to records held by the government. bodies and many others are making efforts to ensure the openness in the government. Some of them, such as Bolivia, Guatemala, Pakistan, Philippines, have issued decrees or used constitutional provision to provide access to such records. However, the culture of secrecy remains strong in many countries, and several such laws, therefore, remain inadequate. In spite of all these problems, more information is being released into the public domain as freedom of information legislation helps create a greater culture of openness. If we look into the regional trends for adopting the freedom of information law, the Europe, nearly all nations of Europe have adopted the freedom of information law. And many Western European countries adopted these laws starting from 1970. In Central and Eastern Europe, for instance, the chance was more dramatic. The breakdown of the USSR led to rush of laws in the region, starting with Ukraine and Hungary in 1992, Azerbaijan in 2005, and Macedonia in 2006. However, Russia and Belarus remain among the larger states which are without the freedom of information law. The United Kingdom adopted the Freedom of Information Act in 2000, and it was fully effected from January 2005. And our Freedom of Information Act also becomes operative from 2005 onwards. It is very important to understand that country like Australia, Canada, New Zealand has passed the Freedom of Information law in early 1980s. And this relatively late adoption by the law from UK came despite strong demands by the civil society groups. One of the election promises of the Labour Party, which rose to power in 1997 after a long period of conservative rule, was to adopt a right to information legislation, which was eventually completed in 2000. However, after the 11th September 2001 attack in United States, the UK government delayed implementation of the key elements of the law until January 2005. Now, it becomes very important to understand the some essential features of the UK right to information. Actually, this UK law of information contains two separate systems for fee. One is for ordinary request, and other comes into play for the more complicated request. In our Right to Information Act 2005, we have also opted the fee system. Certain fee is required, that is rupees 10 and for information, and rupees 2 for per paper if some information that need to be photo state from the uh, public authorities, they can charge rupees 2 per paper, but in total the cost of taking the information is rupees 10. But in UK, they have opted two separate systems. As I discussed, that one is an ordinary request and another is a complicated request. For the ordinary request, public authorities may disclose information only after the payment of a fee, and any such fee must be paid within 3 months. And such fees must be in accordance with the regulations made by the Secretary of the State. The These may prescribe that no fee is to be paid in certain cases, set a maximum fee, and provide for the manner in which fee are to be calculated. Regulations adopted in 2004 provide that only the cost that may be charged of informing the applicant that the authority holds are of inform and communicating the information to the information seeker. And the second system of fee, as per their section 12, exemptions where cost of compliance exceed appropriate limit. So when we make a comparison between UK and Indian freedom of information laws, we will find number of similarities between the UK and Indian. Here, I will take a very brief account of the US law also, and then I'll come on the Right to Information Act. As far as the United States of America's legislation is an innovative act and has given the rest of the world 14 years of experience to draw on. There is a long history of access to public records in the United States. Some states have provided access to records for over a century. The US Freedom of Information Act was enacted in 1966 and went into effect the year after. In addition, all 50 individual states of the USA currently having a right to information law of their own. The Freedom of Information Act has been substantially amended several times. The law allows any person or organization, regardless of citizenship, to ask for records held by federal government and their agencies. These agencies include executive and military departments, government corporations, and other entities which perform government functions except for the Congress, the courts, or the president's immediate staff at the White House, as well as the National Security Council. But here it is becomes very important after this 11th September 2001 when uh, terrorist attack faced by the USA. The US government passed certain legislation such as USA Patriot uniting and strengthening America by providing appropriate tools required to intercept and obstruct terrorism act 2001, that is the Patriot Act 2001, the Homeland Security Act 2002, and other non-legislative measures which actually limit the access to sensitive and potential informations. Our constitution, where this right to information act comes out, they also provides the reasonable restriction in the form of security and integrity. When the USA come up with the freedom of information, as I told you, that they have the absolute freedom of absolute fundamental rights. And this Right to Information Act was also a very wide in nature, but when they face the threat relating to the security and integrity of their nation in 2001, they also come up with certain restriction in the form of legislation, as I mentioned, that is a Patriot Act and Homeland Security Act 2002. Now, here in year 2005, when we come up with the Right to Information Act, 15th June was the day when this law has given and fulfilled the most demanded legislation after the independence. Here I would like to quote the evidence. Evidence has very categorically said that societies in which where there is a progressive society, the people demands for the law, for their upliftment and to put certain checks and balances on the government. But in those societies where there is a static society, law is imposed from the state and peoples are asked to obey the law. Here, the Right to Information Act 2005 is a most pragmatic law that comes on the demand of the most pragmatic society. When we refer the preamble of this Right to Information Act, it simply says that this act is to provide for setting out the practical regime of right to information. When I discuss the Supreme Court's approach through two cases, State of UP versus Rajnarayan and SP Gupta, I'll discuss more cases when it will be required. Judiciary, by taking the help of this Article 19, start declaring the right to know within the ambit of Article 19 as a fundamental right. And when we come up with the Right to Information Act, and that declaration at that time materialized through the Right to Information Act. Because to implement any right, the tools is required. And without the tools, any declaring any right is not going to subserve any purpose. Tools is required in the form of legislation. So the preamble itself says that this act is to setting out the practical regime of right to information for citizens to secure access to information, and that information which is under the control of the public authority. And the next objective of this RTI Act is also very important, that has been incorporated in the reason and object clause in order to promote transparency and accountability in the working of every public authority. So the act says that this act is for setting out the practical regime of right to information, and number two, to promote transparency and accountability. That is a very essential element for the good governance. And in the work, the constitution of a Central Information Commission and State Information Commission And that central and state, because without any tool, the right cannot be enforced. This whole act is divided in 31 sections. 31 section is now repealed. And two schedules are also there. When we refer the Act preamble, it says that whereas the Constitution of India established democratic republic, and whereas democracy requires an informed citizenry and transparency of information which are vital to its functioning, and also to contain corruption and to hold government and their instrumentalities accountable to the governed. Here the whole object comes out what for this RTI Act is trying to achieve. We have opted a democratic system of governance. And in a democratic system of governance, the citizenry must be informed citizenry. And that information must be correct information, apt information to make this citizenry vibrant citizenry. Once the information will not be the correct information, false information, wrong information, this citizenry is not going to be the vibrant citizenry. It will be not going to fulfill and subserve the that democratic virtue that says the genuine democracy. Actually, non-information, misinformation will promote the fake democracy or false democracy. When we refer the RTI Act, certain definitions are very important. The first of all, what does the information means? Here I would like to quote the ICCPR when we refer the and ICSCR, and it is very surprising that in ICCPR and ICCR, in both Article 19, the freedom of speech and expression is there, from where the seek, receive, and impart information is given. I have discussed this ICCPR and ICSCR. The reason being that India is a signatory of these two international instruments, and it is a very important instrument to promote the civil and political lives as well as the social, economic, and cultural lives. When we see the meaning of information, this definition that has been given in right to information is very exhaustive in nature. That definition says that it includes, you just take the name, they will be covered within the definition of the information. Either it is a record, either it is a document, memos, emails, opinions, release, circulars, orders, logbooks, advices, press releases, contract, sample, model, data material, anything which is in the electronic form, they all will be covered within the ambit of the information. And the second thing that becomes very important, to whom a citizen will go to seek the information. And they are the public authority. So it is very important to understand what is the meaning of public authority. And that definition of public authority is also included within section 2 H of the Right to Information Act. This public authority simply means the any authority or body or institution. Three words have been used. Public authority means any authority or body or institution of self government established or constituted. Here two words are very important. One is established, another is a constituted. Number one, by or under the constitution. Number two, by or by any other law made by the parliament. Number three, by any other law made by the state legislature. Number four, by notification issued or order made by the appropriate government that includes any body owned, controlled, or substantially financed. And sub-parties, non-government organizations substantially financed directly or indirectly funds provided by the appropriate government. Here, this definition becomes very wide definition. Means NGOs which are funded, substantially funded, financed directly or indirectly, they are also within the ambit of the Right to Information Act. Here it becomes very important to know that when we are advocating the PPP model, public-private partnership, so the meaning of this public authority, the dimension of this public authority must be enlarged. And now our present Prime Minister of India has added one more P in this PPP model, that is public-private partnership for people. So if within the whole ambit of this democratic setup, public is the central figure, so this public authority dimension should be increased. Now, the Right to Information Act, actually, it gives right to all the citizens to have the information. And in this act, it has been established one central information commission, which will deal the appeal cases, means second appeal cases, that will come in relation to the central matters. If the matter is related to the union government or the central offices, that will be finally, the second appeal will be adjudicated by the Central Information Commission. And as far as the State Information Commission, all the state matters in this second appeal, they will be decided by the State Information Commission. This RTI Act also talks about the establishment of the information cells, where the assistant public information officers, public information officers, the first appellate officers, they will be designated, and they have to work within this ambit of Right to Information Act. As far as this section 4 of this Right to Information Act is concerned, it talks about the obligation of public authorities. What obligation that will be on the shoulders of a public authority? In this obligation, every public authority, the term that is used is shall, means mandatory. It is mandatory on the public authority that they will maintain all their records and catalog them, index them, computerize them, and make available, computerized and connected through a network all over the country on different systems so that access to such record is facilitated. They have been given the time of 120 days for the enactment of this act, that they have to publish all these documents within 120 days. What they have to publish? They have to particular of their its organization, function, duties, power, what the officers have, the employees, the procedure that is to be followed in the decision making, the norms under which they will discharge their functions, rule, regulation, instructions, manual, records. It means this section 4 says that the public authorities within the 120 days from the enactment of this Right to Information Act, they have to prepare themselves. This 120 days time period has been given. So first 100 days, they will make preparations, and after 120 days, they have to publish and they will start functioning under this Right to Information Act, and they have to deliver the information to the information seeker. This section 5 is also very important, that talks about the what will be the designation of the public information officer. This section 5 says that every public authority shall within 100 days of the enactment of this act designate as many officers. As many means to that extent who will be required to fulfill and mandated by the central public information officers or the state public information officers to perform their duties. And generally, without prejudice to the provisions of this section 1, every public authority shall designate an officer within 100 days of the enactment of this act at each subdivision level and other sub-district level as a central assistant public information officer or as a state assistant public information officer. This section 6 basically talks about the request, how a citizen will request to obtain the information. Any citizen who desires to obtain any information under this act shall make a request in writing or through electronic means. There is no bar in English or Hindi, means any local language, official language, either that may be a Hindi, that may be a English, or in any of the official language of that area, which the application is being made, accompanying such fee as may be prescribed. Here it is very important, friends. If a person who is an illiterate person, how he will give the request? He's not able to write in English or Hindi or other official language of that area. Here this act puts an obligations on the APIO, Assistant Public Information Officer, that he will listen the request and deduce on the paper word by word and will take the sign. And that information will be furnished to that person. Here, as far as the fee is concerned, In general, rupees 10 has been mandated as a fee under this RTI Act, but one exception is there, that if that information seeker belongs to the below poverty line BPL category, he has just to place his certificate of the BPL and no fee will be charged to that information seeker who falls within the category of below poverty line. Now, this section 6 is a very important in another aspect, because it talks that any applicant making request for information shall not be required to give any reason. As I was discussing the UK law, where the applicant is not required to give any reason for what reason they are demanding the information. Reason is not required to give. Now, another that very important section is section 7 is there. And that section 7 talks about the disposal of request. In how many time the request to seek the information will be disposed of. Actually, the general time period which is subject to the proviso subsection 2 of section 5 and proviso to subsection 3 of section 6, the CPIO means Central Public Information Officer, or SPIO, State Public Information Officer, whereas the case may be, on receipt of any request under section 6 shall try to provide the information within 30 days of the receipt of the request. Here, two exemptions are there. That is, that information must not fall within the information that has been exempted from the purview of RTI Act under section 8 and section 9. So 30 days time period is there. But here, three other categories are also there. If the third party information is required and that has to be communicated to him, so 5 days time period has been given more, so that becomes 35. And one place is also there where the time period is expanded 10 days, 30 plus 10, that becomes 40 days. And one another very important, if the information which has been requested is relating to the life or liberty of a person, that information shall be provided within the 48 hours of the receipt of the request. Means if the information is relating to the life and liberty, 48 days, general time period 30 days, third party information 35 and 40 days. Here another section that becomes very important, that is a section 8. What actually this section 8 is? When we refer the section 8, and the first exemption means that disclosure of information that has tendency to affect the security, economic interest and relationship with foreign states, that information will not be allowed to be disclosed. If we refer section 8.1a, this section 8.1a actually talks the information disclosure of which would prejudicially affect the sovereignty and integrity of India, the security, the strategic, scientific, and economic interest, then that information can be withheld by the public authority. For an example, economic interest of the state. One case is very important, that is a Kamal Anand versus Central Board of Direct Taxes. In this Kamal Anand versus Central Board of Direct Taxes, the appellant sought departmental guidelines relating to the secure scrutiny policy for non-corporate assessees during the financial year of 2006 and 7. This CPIO denied this under Section 81A because it would prejudicially affect the economic interest of the state. The first appellate officer, while upholding the decision of CPIO, states that if detailed guidelines are made public, then any unscrupulous taxpayer could adjust this declaration of income to avoid verification by the income tax officer. When this matter came in the second appeal to the Central Information Commission, the appellant requested for information related to the previous financial year, and since that period is over, it can be disclosed without any policy implication. So, on behalf of the public authority, it was stated that every year a large number of income tax returns are filed by taxpayer, and only a small percentage of them are taken up for the scrutiny. So, the income tax department issues guideline for selection of cases for scrutiny for the use of assessing officers of the department. In this section 8, the security, integrity, which have potential to prejudicially affect, they are exempted. Those information which are forbidden by the court to publish, tribunal, they would not be disclosed. Those information which would cause a breach of privilege of parliament, that is also exempted. Information including the commercial confidence, trade secret, intellectual property, they are also exempted. So these are certain information under Section 8 which has been exempted from the purview of the Right to Information Act. There is one more section, that is Section 9, which provides the grounds for the rejection to access in certain cases. Even without prejudice to the provisions that contained in Section 8 of the RTI Act, a CPIO or SPIO, as the case may be, may reject request for information where such a request for providing access would involve an infringement of copyright, subsisting in a person other than the state. That information is also exempted. Here one thing becomes very important, that is section 11, and that is given in the definition clause also, the information relating to the third party. Who is a third party? Suppose A is a public authority, B is a person who is demanding the information, and the demand relating to the information is related to the C. So here a triangle comes out. So although that information relating to the C is within the in the records of the public authority, so here whether this public authority is empowered to deliver the information, furnish the information to the information seeker without taking the consent of the C. This is this type of information is called third party information. And here when this type of information will be desired by the any information seeker, the public authority through APIO, they are under obligation to take inform the third party that certain following information has been desired from a person relating to you. What is your observation here? If the third party says that all the information which is desired by the information seeker can be disclosed, in that case also, and when the third party says that no information relating to me will be disclosed, in that case also, means in both the cases, the APIO is a judge to decide that to withhold the information will serve the greater public interest, or to disclose the information will serve the greater public interest. He has to maintain a balance between both these. And now suppose the third party says that no information can be disclosed, and the public authorities of the opinion that information can be disclosed, that will serve the greater public interest. Friends, here it becomes very important that that third party is having the right to make a second appeal if the case is relating to the state, that is State Information Commission, and the case is relating to the center, then Center Information Commission. Here, if, as I discussed, that if the person who is seeking the information is aggrieved from not receiving the information, he can make the first appeal within the organization itself, the same organization. The first appeal will be made in the same department. And if again he is not convinced with the information received, he can go for the second appeal under Section 19 of the Right to Information Act. Through this Section 19, the second appeal provision is given. Appeal provision is there. And after the completion of it says that any person who does not receive a decision within the time specified in Section 1, as I was discussing in Section 7, that disclosure of the disposal of the request is aggrieved by the decision of the CPIO or SPIO, may within the 30 days from the expiration of such period, from the receipt of such decision, prefer the first appeal. So first appeal will be made after the expiration of the 30 days within the same organization, who to the officer who is a senior in rank, to the CPIO or SPIO, as the case may be. And provided that such officer may admit the appeal after the expiration of the period of 30 days, if he or she is satisfied that the appellant was prevented by sufficient cause from filing the appeal in the time. And where an appeal is preferred against an order made by the CPIO or SPIO, as the case may be, Section 11 to disclose third-party information, the appeal by the concerned third party shall be made within the 30 days from the date of the order. And as far as the second appeal is concerned, the second appeal against the decision under subsection 1 shall lie within the 90 days from the date on which the decision should have been made or was actually received by the CPIO or SPIO. Friends, here it becomes very important that for the disposal of the first appeal, 30 days time period is given. But for the second appeal, no such time period is fixed for its disposal. And this is the most important loophole of the RTI Act in the appeal. When this amendment of 2019 has been made and tenure and time period and salaries has been provision relating to these have been amended, this 19 appeal procedure was also need to be amended, but unfortunately it has been left without any change. Now, another section that talks about the penalty, because without any deterrence, any law cannot attain the desired goal. So here penalty provision is there, and if it is proved after the second appeal in Central Information Commission or State Information Commission, they can put fine of rupees 250 per day, each day, till the application is received or information is furnished. But that amount will not exceed to 25,000 rupees. Means 250 rupees each day, that have to not cross the 25,000. Here it becomes also very important that this fine will be charged on the direct on the person who denies the information, means APIO. And here the state or central government is not going to help that APIO out. Means it will be bar on their own pocket. Now, there is a section 22 that talks about the overriding effect. And this RTI Act shall have the effect notwithstanding any inconsistent therewith contained in the Official Secret Act 1923 and any other law for the time being in force or in any instrument having effect by virtue of any law other than this act. There is another important section, that is section 24, and that section talks about that this act not to apply certain organizations. Means those organizations which deals in the intelligence security organizations, they will be out from this Right to Information Act, and they have been placed in Schedule 2 of the Right to Information Act. Here it becomes very important to understand that although these organizations have been placed out like Intelligence Bureau, RAW, Directorate of Revenue Intelligence, Central Economic Intelligence Bureau, Directorate Enforcement, Narcotics Control, Aviation Research Center, etc., Assam Rifles, Indo-Tibetan, CRPF, CSF, these has been excluded. But if any allegation relating to the violation of the human right is there, and information has been sought by the information seeker, and that information is relating to the violation of the human right, these organizations has also to furnish the information. Now, meaningful substantive democracy ought to be founded on the notion of an informed public, adequately equipped to participate thoughtfully and actively in the governance of the country. If transparency and accountability are the imperatives for sustaining democratic governance, access to information is a vital instrument of social transformation, and Right to Information Act 2005 actually helps in achieving the same. Besides, apart from ensuring greater transparency, it also acts as a deterrent against the arbitrary exercise of public power. The governance is therefore undoubtedly strengthened by the RTI. The RTI Act has brewed a quite social revolution and played a vital role in the governance of the country. RTI users and activists in practically every nook and corner of the country are asking questions on varied subjects. The Act has produced a better impact on the quality of the life of the poor and marginalized. Starting from 2005 onwards, Act has brought some very positive changes in the levels of corruption and accountability. RTI is a powerful tool that can deliver significant social benefits. It provides a strong support to democracy and promotes good governance by empowering the citizens' ability to participate effectively and hold government officials accountable. Rather than just providing information, RTI Act is most of the countries has served to be an effective watchdog, ensuring all those coming in purview of the Act to work in accordance with the rules and regulations without any irregularities. Currently, the RTI Act in India passing through a decisive phase. Much more needs to be done to facilitate the growth and development. If the question is what is a good governance, this good governance concept has been basically came into most highlighted central feature when the World Bank denies certain African countries to lend the loans. They said that corruption is on the boom on their country and all the money that has been lended from the World Bank will be misused. So, firstly, they have to come up with the good governance. This governance is annexed with the prefix that is a good. This concept is not something new concept in India, as I referred in my starting remark that Kautilya in his Arthasastra has come up with the Susasa, and he has categorically mentioned certain traits for the king, that how the governance can be made a good, and almost all the essentials that has been counted by Kautilya in Arthasastra has been discussed by the World Bank and UNDP also. Good governance means the effective and efficient administration in a democratic framework. It involves high level organizational efficiency and effectiveness, corresponding in a responsive way in order to attain the predetermined desirable goals of society. If we refer the World Bank document entitled Governance and Development, that is of 1992, certain parameters of good governance have been given, that legitimacy of political system, freedom of association and participation by various social, economic, religious, cultural, and professional groups, an establishment of legal framework based on the rule of law, bureaucratic accountability, transparency, efficiency in the administration, a sound administrative system leading to efficiency and effectiveness, cooperation between government and civil society, etc., etc. Friends, the governance and good governance are being increasingly used terms in development lit. So simultaneously, it is also becomes important to understand the bad governance. If a governance is being increasingly regarded as one of the root cause of all evil within our society, the formulation and implementation of policies and programs are like the unruly horse that will promote the bad governance. So, this RTI Act has played a very vital role to promote the efficiency, accountability, transparency, rule of law, which are the cardinal essentials for ensuring the good governance. And now I would like to conclude that open government is the new democratic culture of an open society towards which every liberal democracy is moving, and our country should not be exception. This idea has been floated by Justice P.N. Bhagwati in the S.P. Gupta versus Union of India. And this RTI Act, in the context of globalization, liberalization, and privatization, has ability to prove the checks and balance of the government, but only thing that is required, that the bureaucracy has to come out from the colonial hangover, and they should actually try to protect the interest of the common man and to enhance the maximum transparency and efficiency in the governance of the country. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for sharing with us your words of wisdom and knowledge. We're going back a lot more informed on the subject. Now, we're open to taking a few questions from our viewers. And the first question that we're taking is from Shreyanshi Jain, who says, how, as citizens, do we verify whether the information provided to us is accurate and not misleading or false?
Uh, Thank you for the question. This question is very pertinent and actually, it is a common belief that any information that has been given by the public authority, it can be demanded by the information seeker to a certified copy of that information. And once an information seeker will have the certified copy of the information, and in between the litigation, if he finds that injustice has been done against him, he, on the basis of that certified copy of information, can move towards the High Court and Supreme Court. And in this case, it is a common presumption. Until now, no such case has been reported. Once a copy is a certified copy of the information, their genuinity is almost is supposed to be approx 100%, because no one will dare to face the consequences from the side of upper judicial houses. Next, please.
The next question is from Nehraj Kasaria, who says, can the public information officer refuse to give information?
Yes, public information officer can refuse the furnish the information if that information falls within the premise of section 9 and section 8. And another thing, there is another section, that is section 24. And if the information is related to those organization which has been categorically excluded from the purview of Right to Information Act in Schedule 2 of RTI Act, in relation to those also, the information can be denied.
Thank you, sir. Coming to the next question, it is from Prabhat Yadav, and it says, what does a non-speaking order mean, where the officer denies to give information, and what is it that makes a particular thing an exception in a particular act or statute?
As far as the RTI Act is concerned, Chandrika, section 8 is very clear. Grounds are there: security, integrity, sovereignty, contempt of court, incitement to an offense. All these things are there. And India is not only exceptional country which has placed certain bars on the information. After, as I discussed in my deliberation, that after 2001, even the US, who proclaims them as a champion in the democratic rights, champions in the fundamental rights, they have also placed certain bars on their furnishing the information. So, yes, grounds are there, but here it becomes very important that these grounds must not be interpreted by the APIOs, PIOs in arbitrary manner. The reasonable restrictions are there, and they have to be dealt in the same letter, in the same spirit, and in the same ethos as it has been discussed in Object and Reason clause of RTI Act. Next, please.
Thank you, sir. The next question is from Ijak Debrama, who says, so what will happen to my application if I select a wrong public authority in the RTI request form?
This is a very much a practical question, but I'll try to give my level best my insights. The common practice under the RTI Act, if the information has been demanded from the wrong public authority, means the public authority who is not concerned with that information. In a general term, that public authority in revert to the concerned person who is desiring the information can send that your information which is desired by you is relating to the such and such authority. This is the address of that authority. You have to approach to that authority. Another provision also there that should be adopted. Generally, this first one is adopted by the public authorities. In ideal sense, it should be that the wrong authority should place that information on the right track. But unfortunately, they revert back mentioning the correct authority and they have to apply again.
Thank
Okay.
you, sir.
Yes.
So the next question.
I will. All the questions are welcome. No issue.
So the next question is from Nancy Patel, who says whether complaints can be made under this act, and if so, what are the conditions?
Yes, there is a section, that is section 18 of the RTI Act 2005, where the powers and functions of the commissions are there. Under that section, a complaint can be filed against the public authorities if they have not fulfilled the certain. Suppose they have not even the created an information cell, they had not appointed the APIOs, PIOs, they had not designated the first appellate officer. There is no such mechanism to resolve the grievances of the information seeker. In that case, a person who is seeking the information can complain under the RTI Act to the, if the case is related to the state information commission, if the case is related to the center information commission. What powers they have? The powers of the CIC or SIC is very important. They can recommend the disciplinary action against the public authority who found guilty of non-compliance of the RTI Act. So yes, complaint can be filed under section 80.
So, coming to the last question, Sushmita Singh says that you mentioned in your deliberation, sir, that the people belonging to the below poverty line need to produce a certificate. But what if the people are not aware of this act in the first place? And what are the measures that the government is taking to ensure that the people are educated about this act, right to information?
Actually, Chandrika, this is the biggest drawback in our society, and not only our society, but every society. Adolf Huxley has very prominently said that confidentiality resides in the mind of human being. Same is applicable to the peoples who are holding the powers and positions in the institutions. Nobody want the watchdog on their own head. So undoubtedly, they escape from their liability. But this RTI Act through rules mandates that the government should try, and this is the duty of the State Information Commission and Central Information Commission, in the form of sometimes they use to celebrate Pakwada, and they after each and every year they have to submit the final annual report. That should be placed on the table of the legislative assembly, and in the Central Information Commission that should be placed on the parliament. All the procedures are there. Awareness schemes, awareness programs should be initiated from the government as well as the CIC and SIC. But yes, I have no hesitation to confess that the CIC, SIC as well as the government all are lacking on their part, and the tendency is very common. The answer is same.
Thank you, sir. Now, I would request Advocate Gargi Sandra to please come and give the vote of thanks to sir.
Thank you so much, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, a very good afternoon to everyone. It has been such an honor to be a part of this wonderful team. On behalf of LawFoyer, I would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to our esteemed guest, Dr. Rajeev Kumar Singh, faculty, Amity Law School, Lucknow, for lending us your valuable time from a busy schedule, bringing out such remarkable insights on right to information and good governance in India, contemporary issues and challenges. That was an incredible session, sir. Thank you so much. Sincere thanks to the entire team of LawFire. A special mention to Mr. Rachit Mehrotra and the whole IT team who handled the event throughout. A wide round of applause and thanks to all the participants and audience who made the event a memorable one. Finally, I would like to thank all of you present here for making the time to be with us today and helping us make this event a grand success. Thank you, all of you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. God bless all. Namaste to all.